There you go.
Hello, hello. Welcome. Happy New Year. I guess it's that time of year now. Week 17 over, headed into the final week of the NFL season. Sports Injury Central Pro Football Doc podcast. So far, a relatively slow news day. It seems like not a lot of coaches have spoken, but still lots of updates and things to talk about here. How goes it, Taylor? Where do you want to start?
I'm good. Everybody had a good Christmas on your side, hopefully. I just wanted to go real quick, Doc. Just talk about the Monday Night Football game because it hasn't happened yet. Right before we jump into stuff. So you have the Monday night game. The Rams, they have the 5 or 6 seed to play for, so it's not like they need to rest anybody. So they should be playing majority of the people. Devontae Adams, though, his injury, it says doubtful, but when we see doubtful, you're assuming out, correct?
Yeah, it's interesting. I almost forgot about the Monday night game, right? I
mean, so much stuff happened on Sunday. Yeah, like just the games were all
it's really good. Anticlimactic. How crazy is it that the Rams are out of the division? They cannot win the division. They're wild card, 5th seed or 6th seed. I guess you can make the argument if you're scoreboard watching. There is some advantage to being the 5th seed, right? Because that pretty much means you get the NFC South winner,
Tampa or
which
Carolina.
is either Tampa or Carolina, right, as opposed to potentially the Eagles, right? As one potential choice, and then certainly that's an easier matchup in theory, Tampa or Carolina, or the Bears, right? Depending on how you finish. Right. The Bears and the Eagles are kind of in line for the 2nd and 3rd seed. So the 6 would play 3. So it would either be Bears or Eagles versus playing Tampa or Carolina, which kind of makes this kind of a big deal, right? I would think.
Sounds like it's a big jump between the Panthers, Tampa, and the 2 teams you just mentioned, Doc. Yeah, it sounds like you
can't look past anybody, but it is a big deal there. So it'll be interesting what happens. No, I do not think Devontae Adams is playing. First of all, doubtful typically doesn't. Now, if he were doubtful ahead of the playoff game, I think there's a chance he could play. Red zone targets, this, that, the other. But he's not going to play tonight. And the question is, how well and how healthy will he be next week? And quite honestly, depending on what happens, he may not play next week either.
Might not matter as much.
Maybe waiting for the playoffs is when you would bring back Devontae Adams. That's at least where we think it really should be.
Anyways. The one injury I wanted to talk, a couple injuries, Doc, the Rams too. That's O-line issues. Their right guard, Kevin Dotson, is out with an ankle injury. They have Havenstein on IR still, and they have Alaric Jackson questionable with a knee injury. He's the left tackle. So majority of those players, Jackson will likely play through, but that is the only issue I could say, Doc, is that's a pretty, when we do our 6 scores of what we always notice, there's a lot of drop off in offensive usage and offensive players or plays, etc., when you have that many offensive linemen down.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into some issues, let's talk about week 18 coming up here is a weird week, right? There's some clear teams that are motivated. Carolina and Tampa, right? They're playing for the division.
On Saturday.
We'll get to Pittsburgh and the Ravens, right? The Lamar question. But the rest of the thing, there's a lot of, are people resting? Are they not resting? And to me, it is almost comparable to opt-out college bowl game season. Like, you really have to research, just like you have to know about injuries. I would argue week 18 is like college bowl season. Where do you stand on the opt-outs, right? That's for college because of NIL. But for the NFL, it's who's being shut down, right? Opt-outs, shut down. The Max Crosby situation, Brock Bowers, or certain teams. And I would argue that SIC score and SIC data and SIC picks become more valuable in week 18. because it's hard to track all of those. And to let people in on a secret, just like when there is kind of an unexpected trade like the Jets, we treat Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner as an injury because that's not something the GM was planning for. And the shutdowns we treat as an injury too. So if the starter is shut down, now some of it is injury related. They're like Max Crosby. He's not 100% healthy and we're shutting him down. So that makes sense to treat him like an injury. But a lot of the shutdowns are related to that. The bottom line is that player is not in. So we factor all that into the SIC scores, et cetera. And I would argue that SIC Picks this week might be more valuable. And I think you guys have been doing pretty well. And anyways, and in the circa, I don't know where we stand. We have one entry. You can look it up. SIC one entry, SIC 1. If I'm not mistaken, we were entering the week. Was it tied for 138? You've got it better than I do.
Yeah, I can look it up. I have. I wanted to go quick, Doc, on the SIC Picks that we did this week. Are going in. We've done really well in our SIC Picks, like you mentioned. Our 3-star spreads are 15-6 this year, which is 71%. Very good. Our guaranteed picks that we've done multiple times this year are 6-2, which is 75%. Very good. And then this year, just on NFL spreads, we're up 27 units, Doc. Just on the spreads of the picks that we've given out. $100 better would be up $2,700. So, I mean, that's incredible. And we're at week 18, Doc, to be that good on the spreads. And our SIC Picks have done well, like you talked about in the circa as well.
Well, what's interesting also is those are against closing lines pretty much. They're not like early week lines. These are all the spreads are given out like closing lines, or the circa obviously is a fixed line. And, I think that's what's interesting about it. It's not even the early mover stuff, which you could get even a bigger advantage.
Better number in theory.
Better numbers a lot of times. And thanks to those of you who signed up for the year-long package, we offered a guarantee, right? Guaranteed winning NFL season or your money back. And we're up 27 units. So that's a nice, solid winning season. The circa, we're going to finish out of the money, I think. But I think it's 5,800 entries, something like that. We're in the tied for something, 138, something like that. And we'll move up a tiny bit this week. Maybe we can crack the top 100, but I don't think we get to the money, right?
Right.
To get I think you have to be pretty high up in the top 25. I don't know. This is our first year looking at it, playing it. So circa millions, I think at least it verifies what we've been saying publicly that,
we can hit at a certain percentage, right?
Hit the percentage, and the percentage is close to 60%. You'll get all the numbers for the documented circa picks. But
all
amazing.
Right, got it right here. We're tied for 187, Doc.
Okay? 187, 138. I lied. Okay, 187.
Yeah, whatever. 46, 33, and 1. Okay.
46, 33, and 1. 187. So
and then you can add
not make it to the top 100 even with a winning week this week. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. If we can, we're well above the 95th percentile. I mean, we can do the math on what the percentile is, et cetera. A good effort, a respectable effort, better than respectable, out of the money, obviously, on the circa pool. But anyways, all right. Let's talk about some topics. Interesting.
Well, speak on last night. We all saw George Kittle and Fred Warner last night. Tell me your thoughts on them going to the playoffs.
Well, George Kittle, I mean, always tries to play through. Did not play through. San Francisco wins the division, wins the number 1 seed, stays at home throughout the playoffs and or Super Bowl.
And the Super Bowl, exactly. Yes, exactly.
George Kittle's playing this next week. Book it. He's playing, 100% playing on Saturday. How effective is the question? I think he will play in the run game, blocking. how much downfield and open field is to question. And Tonjes did just great. No issues last
Exactly. He was very good. Yeah.
So
he was like Michael Mayer, right? If you had a tight end situation, that was a good one. Yes. Go on. Yeah.
Yes. And so book it. Kittle's playing this week with all the marbles there because guess what? He gets through this week and they win. There's a bye week, right?
Yep.
That's pretty good. Fred Warner, I posted a video of him celebrating, running on the field afterwards, the victory. Look, there's no way I could gain a yard on Fred Warner. He would crush me.
Even right now.
He is very athletic and fast, but he is not ready to play. Look at that video. I have this little game where I look at somebody and I have no recollection of which side was injured. He had an ankle fracture dislocation. So I look at the video and go, oh, yeah, that's his right side. He's still favoring it. Do I think he can return to play this season? I think he can. Do I think he will play if the 49ers get to the Super Bowl? Yes, it's the Super Bowl. I think he will play. He won't be 100%, but I think he will play. Can he be the sideline to sideline linebacker that he is? Probably not. Can he fill a hole in an A or B gap and make some plays? Probably. So if the 49ers get to the Super Bowl, book it, Fred Warner will play. The question then is, what about NFC Championship game? Depends. Depends on how he looks and feels. This week is obviously out of the question. The wild card round, hopefully for the 49ers, they won't even have a game, but I think it's probably out of the question. Divisional, there's a hope and a prayer. Conference championship, you can open up the possibility, but it's less than 100% Fred Warner. But less than 100% Fred Warner is still pretty good and pretty miraculous, his comeback so far. So some glimmer of hope there to get him back, maybe not at 100%.
And what fans have saw too about him, Doc, is he's been in the booth upstairs with his leg propped up, weeks before. So he's a steady progress, and now he's on the sideline. So that is a good sign. But like you said, not fully ready to come back yet, right?
Well, he's on the sidelines because it's safe for him to be on the sidelines, and
they wouldn't have let him out beforehand. If
you guys in the war room yesterday asked me about this, if I ever got run over on the sideline. I guarantee you, yes, I was younger then, but I still guarantee you I was less mobile on the sidelines than Fred Warner last night. Okay? Yep. So if they let doctors on the sideline, they're going to let Fred Warner last night on the sideline. He still knows the game. He can get out of the way. And no, I never got trucked on the sidelines. There were a couple of close calls, but yeah.
Well, what's the story, Quentin Jammer, when he was in our room talking about, you used to stand by the warmers, and they had to kick your section with the other warmers. They had to kick you away from the warmers in the cold games.
Well, it depends on the game. The game he was talking about was our first divisional championship, my first one, where we beat the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland, and those warmers were popular and at the corner of the bench. And when the players are on the field, oh yeah, I stood by the warmers, but literally that was a game that was so cold that every time there was a TV timeout or switch of quarters or something, all the players, defensive players, would come off the field and stand next to the warmer, and I'd have to move out of the way. And we talked about it in the war room. My vision of that is still that Jamal Williams, Big Maul, our nose tackle in our 3-4. I remember, I wish I had a camera and I could have taken a picture. There'd be a TV timeout. Everyone on the Cleveland Browns offense would be on their sideline next to the heater. Everyone on the San Diego Chargers would be on the sideline next to the heater. And Jamal Williams would be standing over the ball solo at whatever the line of scrimmage was. He was the only one that didn't come to the line of scrimmage. He was like, A, it's not that cold. B, it's not worth the energy to run over there.
Going back and forth,
That's good. And back, kind of deal. I remember that lasting image there a little bit.
We'll jump to a next game, Doc. We didn't extensively talk about the Lamar Jackson situation. We can go real quick with that. And we'll also talk about TJ Watt. So first, explain the
Before we get to
Jackson-
that, since we did Chargers, let's talk about Phillip Rivers. There's an interesting thing about Phillip Rivers. First of all, he did start the game and he did play the game. Unfortunately, he and the Colts lost, and you've heard his comments. He says he doesn't regret anything. He'd do it again. And doesn't he talk like he's played his last game? I mean, the emotional nature and what have you. And he admits to they'll have a conversation. It won't be a surprise. And really, I think he's going to encourage that it be Riley Leonard. They're out of it. So you ask, they were out of it at kickoff this game. Why not have played Riley Leonard? Because Phillip Rivers took all the first team reps.
Right.
It's unfair to Riley Leonard to put him out there when another quarterback takes all the first team reps. I think this week we've been saying, look, the Colts stayed in it. If the Colts were blown out, I mean, they were leading, they were tied.
They were in it the whole game.
They were blown out. I think it would have been Riley Leonard in the second half, right? But they stayed kind of within range and were leading some of the game, and thus it stayed Phillip Rivers. But week 18, it's going to be Riley Leonard. We've talked about it before. Phillip isn't going to take snaps from a rookie. Now, here's my prediction. I don't think he quits the team or is released. I think his presence, his leadership, he makes friends easily. He's going to want Riley Leonard to succeed. I think he'll be a backup on the sideline.
Yeah, okay.
Ready to come in, but also a coach, right, to Riley Leonard. Because they need two anyways, at least. I mean, Anthony Richardson isn't ready. Right. Daniel Jones is, just had his surgery. So I know they have another quarterback there, but, you're going to likely want to start Riley Leonard, and Phillip will be the backup and hold the clipboard. And I don't think he's quitting on the Colts, even though he just joined. It's his friend Shane Steichen. I think it's great. His kids are there, all the high school kids, but that's just the way that he rolls, et cetera. I think that's what you're gonna see there. But also, interestingly enough, he might need to sign another one-day contract to retire a Charger.
Yeah, because he's technically still true.
He's actually, his last game was as a Colt, so you might need another one-day contract.
That's a true. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. I want to mention
he might need a second one-day contract. The other thing is, I saw Schefter on Pat McAfee's show today say there's a good chance that Daniel Jones will be ready for the start next season and be the starter for the Colts. And we said it as soon as it happened with the Achilles, that there is a reasonable chance he's ready week one. Perhaps not the running gazelle, giraffe type Daniel Jones, but certainly from the pocket, ready week one. And the fact of the Achilles injury is it's more likely he returns to Indy. A, there's going to be fewer suitors. B, he's probably not getting a huge long-term deal, which makes him more affordable for the Colts.
Yep.
C, he's a known commodity, and in a system that he succeeded in with Shane Steichen. Why would he go to a new place without long-term security, without the assurance that the system's going to be a good fit for him? Right. And why would a new team want to sign Daniel Jones knowing he won't be there and available for the offseason program? You're not rolling your dice on a new potential starter. And I think people would agree that Daniel Jones, that's why he took Indy's job anyways instead of staying in Minnesota. He saw a more clear path to being the starter.
Right.
He's not going anywhere where he's not penciled in as the starter. The Colts will pencil him in as the starter. Other teams, you can't bring him in as the starter and not have him be there in the offseason program or be healthy in the offseason program. So this probably cements either another one-year deal with the Colts or a 2-year or 3-year deal with the Colts. The Colts are in the catbird seat to re-sign him, and it would be mutual.
I do want to mention for Phillip, it's good that he's missing the Texans probably. Offensive line issues for the Colts, injuries, right? And then you got Will Anderson and Dino Hunter. That wouldn't be a nice final game if he gets a little bumped up.
Is it on the road or home?
Let me see. I was just looking at it here.
It's got to be on the road. They've had 2 at home.
Yeah, it's on the road. Correct. Yeah, it's
my point being, the Seattle game, he had a great second game, Monday Night Football. I mean, the offense did not let the Colts down there. The defense let the Colts down. Right. But now we see San Francisco's a juggernaut on offense.
They look good.
But I think part of Phillip Rivers' success the last 2 games is, and some success against the Jaguars. They didn't get blown out, right? I mean, they were in it. And yes, he did throw a bad pick, but it was a tipped ball, right?
Yeah.
Is that even without his right tackle, left tackle, and center, he makes all the line protection calls. And that's hard to do in your first week with the team. And it's hard to do outdoors versus indoors Indy. And it's really hard to do on the road, especially in Seattle, known as one of the louder stadiums. So you had a really good Seattle defense playing at home, loud for Phillip Rivers, unable to make all his same line protection calls effectively versus the last 2 games at home. And I think you saw that difference a little bit. But now on the road again, Houston, Riley Leonard, still with Colts offensive issues, offensive line issues. But anyways, that's the Phillip Rivers.
Baltimore Steelers.
It looks like some reporters have said Lamar is going to be ready to go more definitively than others. The line, I'm told, has gone to 3.5.
That's correct.
Which is indicating 3.5.
Lamar's playing in that line.
The Ravens favored on the road against Pittsburgh. That seems to indicate it's Lamar playing.
I agree.
At least that's what the line is saying. But to reiterate, and I had a little text conversation with Ariel too. I'm not hating on Lamar. It's just that, okay, more important, we all agree, more important than Lamar or Huntley, it's Derrick Henry, right? I mean, if you can get the Derrick Henry game that he played last game against Green Bay, it doesn't matter who's at quarterback. The question is, the way that they've been playing, Lamar's been more of a pocket guy. Huntley still runs. Is that what makes the play calls different?
Right.
Is that what makes Derrick Henry more effective? It's a question. And then the question is going to be this week, do you want to play Lamar at 80% or Huntley at 95 or 100%? That's the question. I'm not saying Lamar isn't good. I'm not saying the Ravens don't want Lamar at quarterback, but that's going to be an interesting equation as the week develops here. And then on the other side of the ball, no DK Metcalf. And what's interesting is perhaps the fact that the DK Metcalf suspension, obviously he's suspended. I think the fan is correct. You know, when there's 2 sides of a story, the truth is always somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
You know, as I joke around with my twins, Davis and Dylan, when they fight, you did this to me, you did this to me. The truth is somewhere in the middle. Okay. The fan says, I didn't use any expletives and I didn't use the N-word. I didn't do any of that. Well, apparently it might be coming out he didn't do any of that this time, but potentially
there's another complaint.
The last encounter with DK Metcalf, he did. So he was.
I don't like that side. It makes it look worse on the fan side hearing that side. It sounds like he's like stalking him now in a way, right? Which it doesn't look great, regardless of what's said, you know, on either side.
I think it's a bad look on the part of the
fan, right?
The fan,
right?
It's an awful and suspendable look on the part
of players can't go in. It's like we talked about you can't go in the fan.
You just can't do that. Whether it was a push or a punch
or a shove, whatever. Yeah, whatever.
It was clearly a grab of the shirt. You just can't go into that. You need to walk away, call security again, whatever you want to do. Kind of situation, but I feel like bad. But I got to side to the player. You shouldn't be baited like that, right?
Yeah, that's what it seems like. It's
emotions and what have you.
Right.
I'll come back to that in a second in terms of emotions, and baited into things and so forth. But it was interesting. Once again, I think it was on McAfee with Schefter. I think that when the suspension. When the fan incident happened, I guess Mike. No, I think this was Jay Glazer that said this. Jay Glazer said this.
It was a report
that when the DK incident happened, and they were talking, and Jay Glazer was talking about the previous,
incident,
inappropriate words from the fan, that Mike Tomlin didn't really know about it because Mike Tomlin said, quote, and we've talked about this before too, when you're mic'd up, and I was mic'd up for that game, no one wants to talk to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they avoid you. They avoid you. Yeah,
on air or something.
Yep.
And apparently Mike Tomlin told Jay Glazer that during the game, after this happened, finally Arthur Smith came up to Mike Tomlin and wrote it on the call sheet and fell up the pen and showed it to Mike Tomlin so it wouldn't be heard on the mic'd up situation. Now I gotta say, like, I keep saying this, but as much as you love the access of mic'd up, I don't know why anyone wears it without there being some edit feature. You just can't be effective or yourself. I mean, going back to the Sam Darnold, I'm seeing ghosts, which people have said that on the sidelines before, but when it's mic'd up and that's what gets put out there, it makes you look really bad.
And Tomlin's the kind of coach that says what needs to be said. You know what I mean? So I feel like that if I had that in my mind, I would like be psychological, worried about saying stuff. You know what I mean? Like he just says, I wouldn't like that.
Yeah. So. Even this weekend, I found it amusing that Mike Vrabel took that timeout before the half. We were probably on our halftime injury show, which by the way has been doing very well with picks with Steve Fezzik, but where he called the timeout with not that much time left. And then because he was unhappy with perhaps the hit on Drake May, and basically he mouthed F him, right? And took the timeout up 35-3. And he took a timeout to prolong the half.
That's from the Bill Belichick book. He's got that book. That's a
and then he had the smirk on his face. And then afterwards there was a denial of what he did kind of thing. But that'd be priceless if he were mic'd up, right?
Yes.
Then you could hear the words and the chuckles.
So I say those are from the same vein. I feel like Vrabel and Tomlin, they say whatever it needs to be said. You know what I mean? So that'd be hard to.
No, I agree. So that brings us to the other side. No DK Metcalf in that Steelers game. TJ Watt. Well, Mike Tomlin has said unless he practices full practice all week, he's not going. And if that's what you're sticking to, I'm leaning towards a no for TJ Watt.
Yeah. I have an interesting question. I know you're in the medical field, insurances and stuff. If Pittsburgh misses the playoffs, I guess they're protected, right? The person that did the needle thing, because now you've kind of messed with people's money and stuff, and career paths and stuff. How does that work? Or nothing happens? I guess I don't know
Well, I'm not an attorney. Okay. But if we go back to Tyrod Taylor, and I don't know what happened in the Tyrod Taylor lawsuit.
So I don't know how that litigation, all that. Yeah, I don't know how that works. Yep.
But even in the Tyrod Taylor situation, sure, there's pain and suffering involved. But his economic damages were not that great in theory in terms of the actual damages. He still got paid.
You still get game checks.
Okay. And he still got paid for that season, the contract. I think his theoretical argument is you rob not only pain and suffering, but you robbed me of chance to be solidified as a starter. And if I were solidified as a starter, I would have gotten a next contract where I wouldn't have been released early. So that's how you cost me money.
Okay.
So speculatively, he lost money. He certainly lost prestige. He certainly lost his job. Hard money he didn't lose, but he lost potential money. I don't know what happened with that lawsuit.
That makes sense.
All right. And it launched Justin Herbert's career, right? TJ Watt, if it is as we think, and we have no firm indication that it was someone from the Steelers building, whether a dry needling specialist or an athletic trainer or a physical therapist, probably not a doctor. They don't really do dry needling. how this happened. Still getting paid. His contract, and I don't know what his contractual status is going forward, but he's towards the end of his career. It's going to be hard to argue loss of income for a next contract.
Okay.
You know, can you argue that it cost him bonus money for winning the division?
That's what I would say. You might have a contract saying like,
you argue that it cost, if they don't win, playoff check? Sure, you could argue that, but that's not that much money compared to the whole thing. You get more out of the pain and suffering side. And you know, TJ Watt, like, he's a pillar of that Steelers franchise. They're going to try and treat him right. And I don't know what's going to happen legally there. I'm sure it'll get sorted out. I don't know what's going to happen legally or financially there.
And it's not really binary, right?
It blows my mind that it happened, and it certainly is bad form.
When I told you the report that JJ said dry needling, you sounded like you were shocked. Like
I was. Like, oh, I was like, mind blown. I've talked about it on Ross Tucker. I wouldn't have think tiny filaments, not really a needle, was what dry needling is. The filaments are bendy like a small wire, right? Mm-hmm. Like electrical wire, the threads of an electrical wire, the individual filaments in an electrical wire, they're that small. I don't know how you puncture lung. And also, JJ Watt has a lot of muscle. How do you get that deep and that many times? Because it's small gauge needle or filament. That's how he talked about it. I was like, that's amazing to me that that's what happened.
And it'd be hard to argue too, Doc, like him being out is the reason why that you can directly say they missed. Like you have losses, you have multiple, like 4 or 5 losses in the beginning of the season when he was there, right? So you could say like, why didn't you win the Bears game? Why didn't you win the Bills game, right? Like it's not like directly related, I would say, but it is, like you said, it's hurting their chances maybe. Like, I don't know. Like you said, I don't know how that works in behind the scenes, but.
Well, I would imagine the Steelers are probably, no offense to whoever it was, unhappy with whoever did it.
I would assume so. Yeah.
Not to mention the fact whoever did it is very, very distraught and upset,
beating themselves up about it. Yeah.
So I'm not trying to pile on, kind of situation. Well, we don't know the details. We don't know the whole story or the truth on this yet, but certainly a lot there.
Real quick, Doc, you did mention college opt-outs and stuff. I do want to mention just our SIC picks. We are going to have some college playoff stuff. Those are some big games starting on Wednesday. There's like you said, there's injuries everywhere. There's some injuries that matter in college football, so we'll have that. And then NBA. Once we start winding down in NFL, we jump right into NBA. You've always said injuries might mean a little bit more in NBA since there's less positions. Once you lose one player, explain that a little bit just for people that are jumping.
Well, we talk about cluster injuries a lot in the NFL. And for example, the Arizona Cardinals with 4 out of 5 offensive linemen out, right? You've mentioned a little bit the Rams with 2, potentially 3 offensive linemen out tonight. Mm-hmm. Those are cluster injuries. But in the NBA with 5 starters, every injury is a cluster injury. It's 22 NFL starters. We actually grade 23 because we put in the slot corner.
Yeah, sure, CB,
people don't always notice that, but we put in the slot corner. But 22 players versus starters. And we try and get into the depth of positions as well. But if you just take 22 starters versus 5 starters that go both ways, every individual injury is a cluster in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And even though, look, I've covered NBA, been a team doc for NBA, my experience in NFL is much more vast. But oddly enough, the SIC picks have done just as well or better on NBA than NFL, mm-hmm. based off of, I think, this cluster injury effect.
How much they matter, right?
Yeah.
And on our site, we have NBA SIC scores up. We are posting them weekly, and we're going to have court views again soon. They're same as the field views we have for NFL. Just like you said, you can see the depth and see which positions are in and out. Anything else you want to?
And we've been following along NBA. We just haven't done them because A, the NFL is king, and B, we've got a good number of people in our war room, but our attention is so much on NFL. I think it would detract from our NFL product if we worked on NBA this hard during the NFL season. But starting next week, instead of 32 teams, we'll have 14. And the following week, there will be 8 teams, right? So the effort will be 1/4 of the time. That's where we're able to get in the NBA. And I'm also excited, historically for the wild card round, we've been able to make hay here. We don't have any of those matchups yet, much less scores. And hopefully it works out again. I think we had, if I remember correctly, out of the 6 wildcard games last year, 5 solid picks that went 5-0 in the wildcard round.
It was 4-0 or 5-0. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you say too? We always said once you go deeper in the playoffs, the team that has a healthier team or just better playing through it is what gets. That's what lessens.
Yeah, but in the first round is, look, you could have made it to the playoffs, but then gotten unhealthy late in the season. But if you're unhealthy in the wild card round and our predictions are right, you get eliminated. So the next week teams are healthier, right? Just by the process of elimination.
Exactly. All right, Doc. Well, any of these other insights we have, including we talked about Devontae Adams, and then God help people, Doc, that are still in the fantasy playoffs. There is a select few people that chose their playoffs to be done in week 18. Maybe you need SICScore.com because we'll let you know who's resting and who's in and out, because you're going to have teams that have like Staffords and like players, and they're all of a sudden you're going to have to be going the waiver wire like crazy just to get through a week 18 fantasy. But we'll have all the insights on SICScore.com. And
educate me. Is week 18 fantasy a thing? Because
yes, it
my
is.
Scott Fish was done after I got eliminated before the semifinals.
I want to say something. If you're the commissioner of a league that does that, you're an evil person. They shouldn't be doing stuff like that. But I didn't think it was a thing. But I talked to our Craig, one of our leaders of our company, and he said he is one of those people. So they are there. So I mean, and I looked at his team. I was looking at him yesterday, and he might have to rebuild a roster as he gets to that point. Because if you're in the fantasy playoffs, you have players that are good. Like I have Darnold and Smith and Najibba. If I was in week 18, they might. Luckily, Niners have something, but you know what I mean. Like you get in those situations, you're benching your players that got you there. So it's rough.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Well, yeah, I mean. I don't know. I don't have to worry about that.
You don't know. Our league is done. Yes.
All right.
But
all right. Thanks for listening and watching. Anything else for this Monday here? Monday Night Football, then on to week 18. No more Thursday night footballs. That's done. No more Monday Night Football after tonight. That's done. There is Saturday and Sunday football. And hey, we're brilliant. We predicted the Sunday Night Football game. Shocker. Ravens at Steelers.
The one that's going to matter. No way. Yes.
And why that? Look, obviously the networks that paid for Saturday's broadcast paid a lot of money. They got
for that Carolina Tampa
really good games, right?
Right. Yep.
Carolina and Tampa, an elimination game, and the other games,
SF,
the number 1 seed game.
Yeah.
They got a good game. The rest of the games buried on Sunday, you could argue aren't as good or meaningful there. But some good games this weekend. All right. Thanks for listening and watching. Appreciate you all. And any other questions that are coming up before we sign off?
Nothing in the chat, Doc. Just make sure everybody that's listening, all the viewers, like and subscribe. We'll continually, even though the season's over, we'll still be doing this. And then I know you promote this a little bit later, but after Super Bowl, we start the guest stuff, and we get a lot of big names that go on the podcast for you. And we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll continue this throughout this playoff season.
We're not going anywhere. Yeah.
Coming out of week 18. And remember, the busiest day for the medical staff in the NFL is next Monday.
The Monday after week 18. Yeah.
18 teams. When you're done, and it's your last thing, that's actually exit physicals, off-season surgeries, etc. Way more off-season surgeries than in-season surgeries.
That aren't mentioned as well. Yeah.
See Max Crosby, etc.
He's back in the building, they said. All right, like and subscribe. Thank you so much, guys.
All I said is I saw him shooting hoops there. Like that's That's pretty
he's
nice.
doing this show that he doesn't need knee surgery. I don't know what he's doing. He's playing.
Well, no, it's not even that, but like that's a pretty nice little gym that he's.
Yeah, it's a nice little court he has in his house. Yes, he does. Very nice.
That indoor gym is pretty sweet there.
Yep.
I mean, that's like at first I thought it was the Pat McAfee set, which is pretty sweet. Like that's just in his house with his kid and whatever. That's pretty amazing.
He's a big hoops fan. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Whole nother level. All right. Thanks.